I was doing a feature with Mike on playing chess in prison for Bleacher Report and Turner, and I didn't know. I knew we got along well during it, and he felt comfortable with my crew. So we shot it, said our goodbyes, and I was like, all right, well, I had a nice experience with Michael Vick, and I thought that was it. His manager calls me 2 days later. I was like, hey, Mike, really liked working with you guys. If you ever want to work with anything with him again, just let me know. And I'm like, well, if he ever feels comfortable talking about everything,
right?
And to do a full length, doc production on that, let me know. And I thought he was going to tell me to, F off.
Yeah, of course.
That was a wrap. But look, like Wayne Gretzky and J.R. Smith, you guys shoot your shot. So he said, well, let me ask Mike. I'm like, okay, still not thinking. Next week he calls me. He's like, Mike's into it. He wants to do it. I was like, what? All right, well, I gotta get moving quick and get this done before he changes his mind. But he was great to work with. He was open. He was honest. Some things he felt more comfortable talking about off camera than on camera, in terms of he didn't want his face shown.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Jake Dunlap Show. We are very excited that you joined us. If you haven't tuned in, this is the show where we talk to celebrities, thought, and industry leaders to really discover their journey to success. I am super excited that you're joining us. This show is like no other. I can promise you that. You might laugh, you might cry, but you will definitely leave inspired and gain a whole new level of insight into those people that you follow, love, and admire. All right, everyone, I want you to welcome to the show Mr. Johnny Sweet. Johnny, welcome to another episode of the Jake Dunlap Show. I'm excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk to you.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think you've got a lot of stories. I want to dig into a lot of the things that you were up to in the mid-2010s and some of the cool documentaries you did, award-winning documentarian. Is that right? Is that the... I like that, if it's not a thing.
A title's a title. Like, I don't know. Some people say documentarian. Some people say filmmakers. I prefer to say journalist, but,
We'll keep it journalist. Journalist. I just like the word documentarian. It sounds like very esteemed.
I won't fight it. So if you want to go down that lane, it's totally fine.
All right, let's do it. So cool, man. So just like for those of you listening, you know the drill. We're going to go back to the days Johnny grew up in the city in, late 80s, 90s, then, moved out to Yonkers. So, what was it like for you growing up Upper West Side, New York City in the 80s, early 90s? What was that time like for you?
Well, New York was very different then than it is now. I was a public school kid, so, you just didn't go out at night. Your parents wouldn't let you. So it was the time when the murder rate was at its highest. Our area was okay. It wasn't, I didn't live in that dangerous of an area. But I lived more in a time when the Upper West Side was still filled with artisans and writers, things of that cultural nature. Nowadays, you go back and it's, apartments are like $5-6 grand for a studio in that neighborhood. But it was a great cultural time as well. I grew up in the golden era of rap music.
Yep.
Going to public school, that was what I was indoctrinated in. I fell in love with rap music and sports. Obviously, the Knicks were big then. The Mets. Obviously, I grew up with Darryl Strawberry, Lenny Dykstra, and Lawrence Taylor were my heroes. And then soon that became Patrick Ewing, Anthony Mason, John Starks. For 1 year, Xavier McDaniel.
There you go, the X-Man.
But of course, the Knicks decided to trade him, and that sucked. No, they didn't trade him. They just didn't re-sign him. They let him go to the Celtics. It was just different. It was I had to stay inside at night, but I had a great home life, so that was fine. But there were parts of the city then that you just didn't go to. Actually, there were many parts. So, you just had to know where to go, where not to go. And my mom let me know where those
yeah, your
places
mom's
were.
gonna,
So
she's gonna be like, okay, this is very simple. Just like, don't go here, be home here.
Yeah.
That area now has changed quite a bit. I know exactly like that 80s in Amsterdam and like that whole area now. There's a lot of bars, restaurants, etc. It's much different from I can imagine then. And who's your favorite Nick? Who's your favorite Nick of that era?
Well, if you're including the entire '90s, I got to go with Latrell Sprewell.
Oh, okay.
So
okay. I did not see that move coming.
No, well, Latrell was my favorite player that was not on the Knicks because he was like the anti-Jordan.
Right.
He was like he basically personified rebellion in a way with how he played and his his expressions on the court and the cockback tomahawk dunks and screams and when you're a teenager and you got built up angst in you, you can relate and be entertained by that. So when the Knicks traded for him, I was a kid in a candy store. I couldn't wait for him to play and show what he can do, and he only helped carry us to the finals in '99. No big deal.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I was for similar reasons because I graduated in '98. I played basketball through high school, so for me, I gravitated toward Barkley because I was the same way. Like, couldn't be a Jordan fan because everyone was a Jordan fan. And I grew up in the Midwest, in Kansas City. We didn't have a team. And so similar, I just like the way Barkley played, Like, he just didn't care. The Suns were a fun team to watch then, too. So I gravitated toward those guys.
I remember watching him on the Sixers.
Yeah, exactly. Those were, him not ever winning it, I think, is one of the saddest, at least for me. I mean, it's like Dan Marino not winning it in the NFL, but it's a very sad moment for me. But hey, I think he's made probably more money now in announcing than he probably ever did in the NBA.
Chuck's always told us when we're sitting with him at the bar and he's refusing to let us pay for our own drinks that he's never had a job in his life. So
that's the way to do it, man. That's the way to do it. So at one point then you moved from the city, you moved to Yonkers. What spurred that move?
My mom didn't want me to keep going through the public education system in New York. And we moved up to the Yonkers Hastings border. And Hastings High School was a very good public high school. So she wanted me to have a better education. So that's why we moved.
Got it. All right. So you move up there. And again, I got to imagine for, like you said, like you're growing up, this is like what you probably graduated, 99? 90,
yeah.
98, 99 high school?
99.
99, yeah. So for graduating in 99, and again, you talked about this, like golden era of hip hop, et cetera, like there's like early to mid 90s. So you go from being public school in the city to this, high school, again, probably, I'm guessing a different environment. So what was that transition like for you, from growing up in the city to moving up to, it's not really the burbs, but it's, if you live in the city, it's the, you're like, that's anything outside.
Oh, no, it's northern Yonkers and the Hastings is totally the suburbs. Yeah. It was Leave It to Beaver, but I loved it. I had teachers all over me, making sure that, I was being, a good, because when I was growing up in the city, it was 40 to 1 teacher-student ratio.
Damn.
So going out there, all of a sudden it's 12, 13 to 1, and I had people, on top of me, pushing me, and it was the best education I could have public education, at least I could have asked for. So, but at the same time, it was still great, that area, around that time, the Rough Riders, artists started coming out with DMX and Eve and the Locks.
That's right.
And, X and the Locks are from Yonkers. So they definitely influenced a lot of our tastes around that time, and like the grown adult that I am, I still have Rough Riders gear.
Yes, like do you have a motorcycle jacket?
No, I can't. You can't. No, you have to actually be.
You have to be in the Rough Riders. They actually have most people don't know that there actually is a motorcycle crew that is the Rough Riders.
Yes, and it's actually insanely hard to get into, and I don't think people might not know that it's also very diverse and eclectic in its group. So, if you go back and watch DMX's, wake / first public funeral where they drove all the way from Yonkers to to Brooklyn, to Barclays, you'll see the main cut of Double R, and it is a very diverse group.
Yeah. All right. So shout out. We'll put some links in there too. It's worth checking out. With the stunts and things that I remember seeing like videos of what they would do. I mean, obviously people have seen the videos, like the music videos, but there's some wild shit they got into, like some wild wrecks and other things.
Yeah, there's some of those, but they definitely knew how to brand themselves, and they knew how to separate themselves from the pack.
That's right. So, all right. So it sounds like you're a pretty good student. It sounds like, or at least you had people invested in you. Obviously go to Syracuse after that. What was that transition like for you? Again, going into big school. Syracuse again. That era, I mean, yeah, you're still at the height of Boeheim. You're winning the national championship came like what, right after, right? 2000.
No, that was my senior year. Was Mello.
Yeah, one of the guys from my high school. If you'll definitely remember Jeff Graves. Jeff Graves was the big center for Kansas. He put up like 11 or 12 in that game, I think. But
did he back up LaFrance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Rafe would play.
No, LaFrance. No, sorry, not Rafe. Collison.
Yeah, they would play. Jeff was like the big dude. Jeff was like 6'10". Anyway, he didn't make it. What's up, Jeff? If you're listening as well too. So Syracuse, golden years. You guys win championships. What was school life like? What do you remember? Like, what are some big memories from? Because again, the other part about you is you got three majors. And not only that, the three majors, at least from my vantage point, are not the most like intertwined, right? Journalism, history, poli-sci, right? Which all sound hard too, like especially poli-sci and history. So what was college like for you? Obviously, man, you dove in head first, and what were those years like, and why the triple major?
Well, there was I don't want to say cheat it, but there was a shortcut. I took AP US History in high school,
right?
And I had the best teacher I ever had. Also, the one who probably instilled the best work ethic in me was a teacher named Mr. Tucker. And my AP US History class was the hardest class I ever took in my life. So when I got to college, I adapted very easily. And I also just had a love for history. My aunt's a Civil War history professor from University of Illinois. So I grew up, having just absorbing historical biographical figures, time periods, etc. So I took AP European history without taking a course in it, and I passed both. And you can those count towards both poli-sci and history at Syracuse. So really, right. I had already minored in both before stepping on campus. So it was just a matter of taking 5 to 6 classes per semester to complete the 3 majors. So really, workload-wise, it was really similar to having a double major, which plenty of students have.
Yeah. All right. So it sounds like it wasn't that, but still, I mean, those topics seem very, I don't know, difficult just for me as a layperson, I should say. And then at what point? And I think I accidentally skipped this. So we've been talking a little bit about music, but you were also a DJ, correct? So like you're DJing during this time. Was that your main full-time job? I know you had some internships later at CBS, and we'll talk a little bit about those. But was DJing your full-time, job outside of school?
It was. I would go to class, and then 5 nights a week there was this bar right off campus on Marshall Street called Conrad's, and I was there 4 to 5 nights a week DJing. I would also do my homework and study in there at the same time, which you can do from 9 to about 11.
Yeah.
And then after that, no shot. You gotta do your job and control the crowd and all those things. Not like the crowd was that big. It was actually a small, but it was a rowdy small bar / club, and it was where all the athletes would go. And it was the only place on campus that played rap music. So I blended right in terms of how to.
You didn't have to change up your style. You weren't playing,
No, I knew exactly what songs to play when certain athletes came in. It was basically like they were treating themselves like they had their own starting lineup intro every time they walked in the bar. Come in. After a while, I would roll my eyes at some of the stuff, but some of it was fun. Like when Mello came in, you had to play Dipset Anthem. It was just required. Right. Like, it was that's just how I had to go. So.
Like, you have to play these jams. And what was your DJ name?
I didn't have one. I wasn't going to take it. I wasn't taking it to the level of where I was going to be successful in that lane. I just knew. I knew rap music. I knew what people like to hear. I knew what people like to dance to. So I knew what to do in terms of just making side money to pay for some of college and to stay afloat. So. Well,
Johnny Sweet, I think, could play as a DJ name too, right? Like.
Yeah.
I think it could play, to where it didn't have to be. Yeah, but it also could have. You definitely could have went a different path, and it could have been like. Too sweet or something, there could have been a lot of other paths you went down.
When I got that job at Conrad's, my social life quadrupled. So it was, I had enough fun.
I'm sure. I know a lot of people went to Q's, and it sounds like a great time. And so at what point, man, do you start to get serious about, journalism, right? So, I know you did a summer internship at CBS Sports, that kind of got you more toward TV, but you and I were talking a little bit before. I know you also did some part-time high school sports, work as well, back before. So what was it about journalism in particular that got you excited and to where you kind of made that the track?
Well, I just wanted I wanted my career to be working in sports. I knew I was not a good enough athlete to advance past the high school level, so. I grew up watching MSG and ESPN and those channels, and I watched pregame shows religiously. I watched Outside the Lines religiously. I watched a lot of, the sports reporters. And then as I got into college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to work in sports. I wanted my hobby in some sense to blend in with making money, because if I didn't do that, I'd probably be a miserable human being. So, but when I got into the Newhouse program, when I started the Newhouse program at Syracuse, that's where the ethics of journalism really kind of took a hold with me. The journalistic ethics that were instilled in us there. And just authenticity and telling the truth. That's what I've always really tried and pushed for. And, when I got to ESPN, that was instilled in me with steroids. So that's basically how it
What was that
evolved.
path like for you? Like, so that, again, the path, because I think a lot of people probably want or are interested, we've got a pretty mixed demographic that tune in every week. What was that process like? For me, I started off my career in sports too, on the sales side. That was a little easier to get into. Selling tickets for the Tampa Bay Rays. You'd appreciate this. I was selling tickets for the Tampa Bay Rays in like 2003, 2004. It was tough, man. It was not easy.
You had some fans show up, at least when the Yankees.
Yeah, for the Yankees and Red Sox. That's exactly it. That thing would be packed. Then there was like somehow they scheduled a Tuesday day game versus the Twins, and I think there was like 1,200 people, maybe like 2,000, but.
Yeah, it's a tough draw.
It is. Well, at least they're winning now, so that's good. So what was that path like for you to ESPN? Because again, your major is magazine journalism too, but you've done kind of a mix. And how did you kind of move toward TV, the move toward ESPN? Did you like to still write? What was that kind of path for you to really make the TV and then film side of it your go-to?
Well, I don't know what it's like now for Syracuse or for ESPN in terms of how they, hire people. It's been over, it's been almost a dozen years since I've been there. No, not a dozen, 10 years. But Syracuse is like the pipe. A third of the company was from Syracuse. They all came from the Newhouse program. So getting an interview there, if you're a Newhouse alum, is not exactly difficult. So, and then it's just trying to master the interview itself was really the only obstacle.
Do you remember the interview at all? Do you remember?
Oh yeah. Great man named Fred Brown interviewed me, and I think I caught him on a really good day because I remember he saw that I'd interned at CBS for a summer, so he was like, okay, you have some sort of building block here to come in. But he asked me 3 random sports questions, and I knew they were coming. And as long as he didn't ask me about hockey or golf, I felt, or NASCAR, I felt pretty safe. So luckily he asked me NFL and NBA questions.
Do you remember the questions?
One was he asked me one about what's the strength of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and at the time they were running a zone blitz scheme, and that was a Dom Capers specialty, so I knew that. And then he also asked me what's the strength of the Sixers outside of Allen Iverson, and I said, well, it's their bench led by Aaron McKee. So it was Aaron McKee. Pretty sure it was Aaron McKee. Brain fades over time. I also have baby brain, so because I have a newborn.
Congratulations!
But, thank you. So
that was it.
Later,
that was it. Just those 3 questions.
I forget what the third one was.
But that's the whole interview. It's just like, okay,
that was it. Yeah.
Wow. So it's
that was it.
What was the first job? Do you remember the first, or what were the first few jobs?
Oh, you get thrown right in the fire for SportsCenter highlights, and if they give you a 6-month trial period, and you're judged pretty harshly. So after 6 months, as long as you don't make too many mistakes and embarrass their talent on air, then they keep you full time. And then from there, you try and choose the path that you want to go, whether it's being a line producer, a talent producer, or into features. And that was the lane that I ultimately wanted to go down.
Any memories of when you messed it up? Any memories of, either like botching it at a key moment, or maybe if it's not you, some other kid, because it seems it's so seamless. It is pretty. I mean, as a viewer, right? I mean, the amount of work that you guys have to put in to make it look like that, this guy's insane. But any kind of memories in those early years of either struggle with you or some of your coworkers?
There were definitely times where they work you, especially on Saturdays with college football, they work you 16, 18 hours a day. But there was this guy named Rob Mickle who was in charge of SportsCenter Top 10 for a long time. And he always would get it done right before it would hit its segment. So, and this was back when we were on tape.
Right.
And this was a man with like decent size. And if you're watching, all good. This is really funny. We all know that you would run down the hall and knock people over to get that thing to make sure it made air. And, he never missed his spot, but it was always a last-second delivery. He's sweating. The producers are yelling on the McCurdy, saying, where's the damn tape? It's like, with expletives flying everywhere because it's just live television's controlled chaos. And I always found it entertaining. Other people didn't, who got run over. But he was doing his job, and he got it, so...
It reminded me of that commercial from that era. Remember Terry Tate, office linebacker?
Oh, yeah.
It reminds me...
Well, he wasn't built like that guy, but...
It kind of reminds me of Terry Tate, like going for... If a lot of you probably don't know, just go to YouTube and YouTube Terry Tate, because it is one of the funniest sets of commercials that you've ever seen. I love that. And so you mentioned that you then started to go into... the film side of ESPN. What was it that kind of drew you? Again, you talked about some of the stories that you like to watch before, outside the lines, etc. What was it that, as you started to kind of find your way, that you found, hey, this is where I'm finding my passion?
Well, I didn't know if I wanted to be a line producer of features. I still didn't know yet. I was an associate producer on the NBA shows, and all the feature producers, I think, were tied up with assignments, and so the features unit reached out to the show and asked for a producer to produce a feature on Leon Poe for the NBA Finals. And so they assigned me, and I was scared shitless, not gonna lie. But the guy who was running the features unit at that time was Tom McCollum, and I could not have gotten a better mentor or teacher. And then there were other guys there like Martin Kopastasian, Lydell King, Chris Bloxam, and they helped guide me through that process, what camera crews to hire, how to properly write the script, how to prep your talent for interviews. And, I came back and, it aired, and, they were like, well, you didn't screw up too bad. Is this something you want to do? We can try kind of mold you. And I was like, yeah, I think this is something. Obviously, I need a ton of improvement in coaching, but I couldn't ask for better people to train me in that lane. And yeah, that's how the decision was made.
What year was that you got in, that you joined that first feature?
That was 2007.
2007.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, when the Celtics beat the Lakers in the finals.
All right, so you're getting into that world now. So this features world. What are some memories that have in some of the notes from before? You talked about people that helped to shape you, during that time period between then and then when you started to kind of really get more of these like longer form, like the Vick documentary. We'll talk a little bit about.
Okay.
What are some of those big memories, or even things that people, when they see these features, might just be, blown away by, or just not 100%, wow, like this is really amazing?
I mean, geez, there's a lot to pick from. I'll give you a schedule of what it's like to do a countdown, a feature for
Let's
NFL
do it,
countdown every single week. And keep in mind, this is 22 straight weeks. So you watch games on Sunday, you submit your ideas Sunday night to the powers that be. Monday morning, they choose which ones are greenlit and assigned to the producer to do them. You contact that day NFL PR team, whatever team it is, to try and get everything scheduled. You try and line up your camera crew. Hopefully you're shooting by Wednesday or Thursday. Friday, you got to have a script approved by Saturday, 16 to 21 hour edit to have everything done and finalized and approved. And then it runs Sunday morning, and then you're back at it again. That's 22 straight weeks. That's an NFL countdown feature producer schedule.
Wow.
That was, I did that for, I want to say 4 or 5 straight seasons, but
wow. And then there's no break, right? I'm sure they're repurposing you, right? It's not like you're only doing the NFL.
No, your break is watching games and thinking of stories.
Right.
That's your break.
Yeah, exactly.
No, your break is when the season's over. But then I had NBA right after that. But NBA was just, they only wanted features leading up to the playoffs at that point. So you get a little bit of a breather. And in the summertime, you're assigned a random story here or there for SportsCenter, or Outside the Lines, or leading into college game day or something. Actually, I never did college game day football, but basketball I did. Yeah. So they find something.
I was going to say, it's like, well, and we know that you just, worked, 100-hour weeks, but we got to find more for you. And so what led to the Vick, the Vick documentary? What was it, as you've kind of honed your craft, this is, releases 9 years later from when you start. You talked about this crazy production schedule for 4 or 5 years. What led to selecting that documentary, and just maybe talk a little bit about what that process was like?
I was doing a feature with Mike on playing chess in prison for Bleacher Report and Turner. And I didn't know. I knew we got along well during it, and he felt comfortable with my crew. So we shot it and, said our goodbyes. And I was like, all right, well, I had a nice experience with Michael Vick, and I thought that was it. His manager calls me 2 days later. I was like, hey, Mike, really liked working with you guys. If you ever want to work with anything with him again, just let me know. And I'm like, well, if he ever feels comfortable talking about everything,
right,
and to do a full length, doc production on that, let me know. And I thought he was going to tell me to, F off.
Yeah, of course.
That was a wrap. But look, like Wayne Gretzky and J.R. Smith, you guys shoot your shot. So he said, well, let me ask Mike. I'm like, okay, still not thinking. Next week he calls me. He's like, Mike's into it. He wants to do it. I was like, what? All right, well, I gotta get moving quick and get this done before he changes his mind. But he was great to work with. He was open. He was honest. Some things he felt more comfortable talking about off camera than on camera, in terms of he didn't want his face shown. But
what are the things people don't know about? For again, I would suggest people go and check it out. But what are maybe something that, again, the on camera that or that you kind of getting to know him
that, especially during that time where he's kind of starting his, I don't know, redemption, whatever, however he would phrase it, story.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that people don't know about Vic?
About Mike?
Yeah.
I mean, we get our initial getting along stuff was over rap music. We would just talk about rap music. And that's really what kind of eased the, melted the ice between us. But, Mike's really fucking smart, like very cerebral with a lot of, with knowledge about a lot of different things. He's also very loyal to people back home. And that loyalty, if you watch the film, that loyalty cost him. So, if people who really know his story follow it, Mike goes to jail because people broke their loyalty to him and ratted him out.
Yep.
And he never ratted anybody out, and he was offered to rat people out and he said no. And that cost him an extra year in prison, which ultimately cost him an extra $20 million probably. So he was loyal. Look, outside of obviously the controversy, which we dug into in the film, I had to stay objective. I'm a dog lover, but also at the same time, this man paid his price to society and then some. So at some point, you got to ask yourself, like, is it time to forgive?
Right.
And that's up to the viewer to decide. We don't tell you which way to go. In the film, we present you with all the factual info that we could give. First time the investigator who led that case talked on camera, spoke with us about it. So, it was a great initial long film learning experience, and I took a lot of lessons from that to onto next projects. That process made me a much better filmmaker.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially like getting that longer experience as well too. And then again, 3 years later, you get this opportunity with Ron Artest, right? And again, talk about a lot of, I don't know, misconceptions or right conceptions, depending on how you look at it. And obviously, like you said, your job is to stay objective. What led to Quiet Storm? And obviously, with Quiet Storm, you get a lot of recognition as well too from this one in particular. When best film at Santa Barbara, Cleveland, a bunch of others nominated. You're in the press, talking about it. What led to it, and what was that experience like working with Ron?
Well, there's no lie in Ron. I think what people might not understand when you're making these films, the people who want to make these films the right way, your job is not to be friends with the subject. Your job is to be loyal to the story. And I felt Ron's story was the most important basketball story of the last 20 years in terms of what he said after the 2010 championship, where he thanked the psychiatrist, caused the strongest ripple effect, I think, in society connected to sports. So that's the film's focus is about his mental health and his battle to maintain, his condition. So it was challenging. It was rewarding and challenging to work with him on the film. He did not have editorial control, which is very rare these days with documentaries.
Sure.
And it's something that our group prides on. We want to make sure that the film is as authentic as possible, and it's not a puff for publicity production. But there's some things in there that Ron wanted us to take out, but we felt it was important to leave in because of the truth and the authenticity. So, but it probably took 5 years off my life making that film. But
What in particular? What was the hard? Some of the hard parts.
I'd like to send a huge thank you to the NBA for the first time ever allowing the brawl footage to be licensed, because it was hands down the most important visuals for that film, and the NBA in the past has not licensed that footage, but they had the foresight to see that the film was about mental health and that footage was important to show. Because when he's lying on the table, he is, where people think he's, being a prick, he's actually practicing a mental health routine and exercise to help calm him down. And that footage was really, really vital in terms of telling, telling the story the right way. So, but it took 4 months to hear back from the league.
Oh man,
that's probably what caused me to develop many gray hairs over that time period.
Yeah, and I have to imagine
it's
something that you said too, Johnny, about not befriending them and staying true to the story. I don't know. I mean, I guess, as somebody who's trained in it, me as a non-trained in it, I feel like that would be hard, as you get to know these people and, they're opening up to you to maintain that. And how in a story like this too, where you spend so much time and, put so much of yourself into it, how, does that get hard to maintain that line from time to time? Obviously not from an ethical standpoint, but just from a human standpoint.
Yeah, there are times, but I'm always honest with whomever I'm working with. I don't do gotcha journalism. I don't make any deals, before interviewing people, but I do tell them this is what we want to talk to you about, and we have to ask these questions. So, I'm not going to not ask these questions when you're on camera. How you answer them is up to you. You have the right to not answer the questions.
Right.
You have the right to, try and dodge them. There's countless politicians that do it all the time. Some better than others, but no, it's important. You also have to show that you have the courage to ask these questions. I think it's vital. But most times people will answer the question, at least from athletes and stuff. They answer questions honestly. I feel, because most of them come from pretty real backgrounds, and they like to be viewed in that lane. So usually that combination works. So.
Yeah, and then recently, again, we'll put links to all the different ways to access the shows as well too, so people can check them out. So recently, you've been starting to, you did then the first was The Last Call, the shutdown of the NYC bars. What led you to that topic, right? You've been kind of built this amazing, career, and they're, again, continuing to hone your craft as a storyteller of, pulling stories out of people. What was it about that story that kind of called to you?
All of our projects have been canceled because the pandemic started. So I had to figure out something to keep me busy so I didn't drive my wife insane. So the first industry I thought of outside of selfishly my own was the hospitality industry, because I had DJ'd up at Conrad's at Syracuse. And I know what it's like to work in the service industry, not firsthand as a server. I was lucky. I had the fun job being behind a DJ booth and, playing music and socializing. But I know what barbacks, bartenders, managers, waiters, they all go through on a nightly basis, at least from that experience. And they were the first people I thought of. And I knew they were going to get screwed over. The bar that I met my wife at actually is 2 blocks away from where we live now.
Okay.
So I had a mutual friend that knew a bartender there who I knew would be great on camera. And Jenna could not have been a greater, more open and honest central subject. And then I got to meet her co-workers, some of her mutual friends who became perfect supporting characters. And we rolled from there. And yeah, it wasn't fun filming outside Elmhurst during that time period. But, you have to take precautions, but at the same time, you got to take chances and risks. No guts, no glory. So we got it done as best as we could under those interesting circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. And especially now in New York too, it's just so up and down. I was back in the city. I was in Brooklyn 3 weeks ago. And we went to the Nets game, and was for sure, I was like, man, this is going to get canceled. And so I think it's still in New York in particular. I'm fortunate to some extent. I live in Austin now. We moved from New York, and it's, it's a little more open here. We've got a little bit more of that, but I think it's still a pretty uncertain time for a lot of the things happening in New York.
Yeah, it's an adjustment, but you just you got to roll with the punches.
That's right, man. That's right. So all right, man. As we start to wrap up here, I want to talk about kind of the next project that's coming out here around March Madness, the HBCU, and maybe just a little bit about what people can expect from that. What was that story like? For you, obviously, that was, again, talking about kind of the shutdown of the bars. That was, I think, the moment for a lot of people, right, when they shut down the tournament. And, being in Austin now, they'd shut down South by, and they happen within a day of each other. And so I'm curious to know, talk to people a little bit about the documentary, talk about the project with CBS and what to expect.
Well, we did the HBCU project last year with them. Working with CBS is great. It's just great company, just a great network to work with. So after last year, we were lucky enough to get this year's project as well for that. So this year the focus is going to be on Kenny Anderson, J.R. Smith, and Cynthia Cooper. These are athletes that outside of Cynthia Cooper had actually graduated from Prairie View University. People think she graduated from USC, but she didn't. She finished her degree at Prairie View. These are athletes. They're famous athletes. They're having second acts because of HBCU education and culture. So we're going to focus it on those three, what they're doing now through those schools. And J.R. Smith was 36-year-old freshman student, at North Carolina A&T.
Was he really?
Well, he is. Yeah, he is now. And he never went to college. He skipped it because he was one of the last.
I remember that.
To go to the NBA. So it's just these are important stories to tell, and we got a great team that's helping us tell it the right way, and hopefully we do that.
Yeah, it's great. I think there's more awareness around the history there and the future as well than ever before. I think again what do you think Deion has done? Especially on the football front for, this historically, black colleges. It feels like, he got the number one recruit, right? The number one prep.
Yeah. The thing with Deion that I don't think people remember was Florida. He went to Florida State, but Florida A&M is right next door.
Right.
And he was heavily influenced by that university as well in terms of from a social and education standpoint. So, I'm not shocked that Deion was able to recruit anybody to anywhere. That he can sell salt to a slug.
Yeah, Eddie George didn't get him. Let's put it that way, right?
That's But if you're in a room with Deion for less than a minute, you probably will do a lot of things that you don't think you would want. You don't think you would wind up doing.
We'll talk about that. You'll have to tell some PG rated versions of that next time, man. But no, this has been fun, man. It's an amazing journey that you've been on, man. You've told some stories, and just even getting to know you just in terms of how you approach journalism, etc. I think it makes me even more excited to see some of your future projects, man. So I really enjoyed it. I think our listeners will get a lot out of, again, your story and how, you continue to follow your passion throughout and really find projects that you didn't have to, like you said, tiptoe, or you didn't have to, cower to what somebody else wanted. You just stuck with it and told the stories that you let the stories tell themselves, as opposed to making yourself the story. So I think it's going to be an amazing, a lot of amazing takeaways for our listeners for sure.
Loyalty should always be to the story, 100%, not to your main subject, not to, any other outside agenda. Your loyalty, if you can, because it's tough because there's pressures from a lot of different angles to sway. But if you can maintain your loyalty to the story as close to 100% as possible, then not only will your story benefit, but so will the education of the viewers who are watching. So I'm hoping I know journalism is under attack these days, but I'm hoping we can still, maintain that steady, not steady ship now, but hopefully it can still continue.
I think more people are looking for it, man. I think but they're looking to hear from people like you, Johnny, who they know that they're going to get a straight story from. That, we've kind of went through this pendulum, right, where we went so far one way, and now I see more and more people having a mindset, like what you mentioned, which was around, letting the story tell itself versus the angle you want to take or that person wants to take. So I think that came across loud and clear, and I think a lot of people, I think you're going to have a lot of new fans and viewers and people waiting for your next project for sure.
As long as we stay authentic and we tell things the right way and we tell the truth, I'll be happy. That's all I really kind of care about. So.
Well, I love it, man. Well, look, again, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see everyone next week on the Jake Dunlap Show.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to another extremely fun and interesting episode. I thought it was fun and interesting, so I hope you did too, of the Jake Dunlap Show. Really great, just breaking down everything that makes people who they are, the success, the trials and errors, and I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite platform, and make sure, more than anything, to go over to jakedunlap.com. That's where you're going to stay up to date on all the latest guests, additional details, prep notes. We're going to be sharing everything on jakedunlap.com. So go ahead, go over there. You can subscribe there as well, too, and we will see you next week on the Jake Dunlap Show.